Hey there, this is Anna Maria with Henschel Chiropractic. I'm a functional strength trainer here. Today we're going to talk about just stretching out the quads and the hamstrings, right? Two of our biggest groups of muscles on our body, and boy do they get tight. So we're going to start with quads. So your quadriceps, four muscles in front of the body. They're front of your legs, front of your femur. Their job is leg extension, right? So they take your bent knee and they straighten it. The problem is sometimes they get so tight that you can't bend your knee all the way, right? And you can feel that tension all the way through here. So we're gonna stretch your quads, and I'm sure if any of you have taken track, you know, you grab your foot, you pull it in. We're gonna do that, but we're gonna do it right, okay? So that means we're gonna do it slow, we're gonna do it mindfully, and we're gonna do it with the right hip position. So I'm gonna use a yoga strap here. And this is really, if you can reach back and grab your foot easily, you don't need to use a strap, okay? But for lots of people, they can. So I guess I'll demonstrate it without a strap first. And I want you to use a wall to stabilize yourself. Whether you're using a wall or a table or a chair, all perfectly good options, but keep yourself stable so that you're not working the balance and trying to figure that out while stretching this big muscle. So with your foot, the reason why most people don't do it right is that they do this. They pull their knee in front of them. Which yes, is my quad stretching? Yes. Is it the most effective way to stretch my quad? No. So we want to stand up tall, and I want to push my hip forward as I guide that knee back. So it's gonna end up in one line from my hip, right? But wow, what a difference in the stretch. This is a very different, like this all day long. I don't feel any sensation here, okay? Now I'm feeling that sensation. So I keep pushing my hips forward as I bring that heel back, right? What I'm looking for is hip extension, right? This is hip flexion, where it's bent. This is hip extension. Now, how can I make it even more? I can squeeze that left glute. So that's going to be the antagonist muscle here. So now I can squeeze that left glute as I'm pulling that knee back in space and pulling my hip forward. That's a whole lot of stretch that's happening. Let's say you can't pick up your foot, right? So you're in good company. Lots of people can. I'm using a yoga strap. You can use a belt. You can use a rope. You could use if all you have is a TheraBand or surgical tubing, use that, okay? I'm gonna wrap it around my foot, grab both ends, and bring it behind me, okay? And then I can sort of do this little thing where I'm wrapping the strap around my hand a couple of times so that I'm not having to hold it and grip it. It's there, right? So you can see my palm is open, I still have the strap. And then it's the same thing, right? So I'm just gonna hold onto the wall, stand up tall, find just a little bit of a posterior tuck of the tail, right? Posterior tail. So now you can think about lifting your pubic bone, or you can think about sending your tailbone down. But we wanna have that nice neutral pelvis as I bring my knee back. And that might be where you are today. I'm also going to show you one down on the floor. This is called a King Arthur stretch. It's pretty intense, I'm not going to lie. You're going to want to get a mat and place it against the wall. Now, if you've got really sensitive knees, so if you're somebody who can't be on your knees, this one is not going to be for you because this one's pretty intense on the kneecap. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to put one knee right against the wall, right? This is called a King Arthur stretch. So if you give me my sword, I'm King Arthur, right? So you can bring your hands on top of that right thigh. And there's two ways that you're gonna work this stretch. One of them is you're gonna push and try to lean your body back against the wall. Now you can see this is a giant stretch here on my quad, okay? The other way to do it is to find that neutral pelvic position and start to lean forward. And then that's gonna be intense on my quad, but it's also gonna start getting into that psoas. Like you can feel the tugging, woo, all the way up that psoas in this pose. The trick is though, is to keep that pelvis a little bit tucked under, that posterior tilt. Because if you stick your butt out and take it out, well now I'm not feeling anything, okay? So sit up tall, tuck your tailbone under, and lean forward. Okay, so now let's talk about hamstrings. And the hamstrings, those are three muscles right here that go along the back of your leg, right? And their job, so the quad's job is to straighten your leg. Hamstring's job is to bend it, okay? To bend that knee. That knee is just a hinge joint. So your quad straighten it, your hammies bend it. So we're gonna talk about how to stretch your hamstrings. And for lots of people, particularly, so if you can imagine, if you sit in a chair all day, your legs are bent all day. Your hamstrings are engaged all day long, right? Just standing is like a huge shift in position for them. So they can get pretty tight for lots of us. One of my favorite ways to stretch hamstrings is to simply come against the wall, right? Now I'm going to bring one foot forward. I'm gonna pick up those right toes and I'm just gonna push my hips back. And I can already feel this hamstring stretching. This is not a particularly intense stretch, so those of you who are really tight and just starting to work on mobility, this should be pretty accessible, right? If it's already too much, step in, okay? Your weight's gonna be in that back leg. I'm gonna bring my right heel forward, push my butt back, and start to feel that stretch. Now remember, when you're trying to stretch your hamstrings, something important to remember is that if you're feeling it all the way up on your butt, you're not stretching your hamstring, okay? You're stretching the attachment. You're stretching the tendon that goes to your ischial tuberosity, which is the little bottom of your pelvis. Tendons don't really like to be stretched, right? So we wanna be careful. We wanna make sure that we're feeling it in the belly of the muscle. You can also find a very short little, whether it's a table or a stool or a block, and lean into it, right? If balance is a challenge, you're gonna put something next to you to make sure that you're nice and solid, and then you can lean into it. Now, something important to remember when you're stretching those hamstrings is that, like we talked about, like I just mentioned, there are three distinct muscles in your hamstring group. So there's your biceps femoris, goes down the center, and then there's also lateral and medial, right? So when you're stretching your hamstring, to get the most out of it, you're gonna want to rotate. So I'm gonna lean in, and I'm gonna make sure that this is coming from your hips. So you're not pushing your butt out as those toes come in, and then pushing them the other way when your toes come out. Everything else moves the same. Lean forward and rotate left and right. Left and right, left and right. Okay, you can do this, those of you who have healthy knees, you can do this on a mat or on a yoga mat, where you can bring your fingertips down and rotate. Toes all the way in, toes all the way out, okay? Reach your heart forward. I've got a pretty good amount of weight on my hands here, so I'm really supporting myself with my hands, okay? And hold, right? And these are what I would call, these are static stretches, okay? Where you're holding, you're finding a position and you're holding, and you're getting into that flexibility. Just as important, particularly when you're working with hamstrings, is to find dynamic stretching. So that's gonna be movement with stretching, and that's gonna teach those muscles that they are useful longer, and that will help to protect them. So a great way is to simply lean forward, lean back, lean forward, lean back, right? Now we're moving, you can lean forward, really working that, opening the psoas now, lean back. Arms up, arms down, right? And moving through that range of motion is gonna help both your quads and your psoas open, as well as your hamstrings moving like that, okay? As always, go see Henschel Chiropractic, get your adjustment. If you can get in for a massage, get a massage. They will really help. Again, there is no substitute for having a body worker get into those big muscles.